Yes, indeed, folks, you're tuning to Blue Please here on WoW Radio, myself, Total Biscuit, and I'm the guy who cannot pronounce Alga or whatever. This is why I'm calling him Algalol, because it's easier to say. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that rubbish. Yes, Algalol. That's what it's called. Now, there is more QQing. Can you imagine? On the forums regarding the difficulty of Ulduar, but we're going to talk now about what's actually being changed as regards to Ulduar. But first, I think it's time to announce the winners of this contest. Those of you who were not aware, last week we announced a contest to rewrite the lore in a suitably terrible fashion. And, oh, you guys obliged. You really did. And the contest was to win one of 5 copies of Arthas Rise of the Lich King, which I believe is actually out today, which is great. So you'll be getting your copies if you win this relatively soon. So, here we go. I have 5 entries, and I'm going to announce the... Well, actually, no, I haven't got 5 entries. I've got 5 winners. I've got like 5,000 entries. And these are the 5 winners that I have picked. Yes, I had to spend hours trawling through this stuff. Oh, it's terrible. The first winner of the contest to rewrite the lore is Umamor of Bladefist US for his story about Arthas getting really upset and crying a lot over Stratum. It's really quite good. Bear in mind, all of these are getting made into radio skits later on. Second winner is the totally extended and messed up version of the Ascent to Icecrown by Hornshade Tauren, which actually involves Arthas meeting a GM on the way up, asking whether or not he'd looted his badges from Illidan or checked to see if the Blades of Azeroth had dropped. I like that. I think that was pretty cool. Next one. The next winner of the contest is Dark Crescent from Senjin US for his Warcraft Kindergarten thing, which is... I don't even know how far to go into that. It's there. It's crazy, but I like it. It's just a little bit disturbing. The next winner of the contest is Brad Gardner for his Breaking the Law story. And it is absolutely horrendous. It has the words Arthas poo in it, which is just... Ugh. And last but not least, final winner of a copy of Arthas Rise of the Lich King in our contest, consisting of a story which involves the Penguin of Time and Uber Cyber Ultra Kael'thas, is Alex Das. So well done. All of you win copies of Arthas Rise of the Lich King. Email me at totalbiscuit@wcradio.com with your addresses, and we'll get them shipped out to you, so well done. Right, time to get back into content, folks. Now, you may have noticed in the past couple of updates, there have been 2 updates since the launch of patch 3.1, that there have been various changes to certain elements of Ulduar. And the first change that I noticed, actually, was a nerf to the enrage timer of Razor Scale. And to be honest, being someone who actually beat Razor Scale pre-nerf, I don't really see that as being particularly necessary, particularly bearing in mind that Razor Scale is an optional encounter. Yeah, you don't need to kill him in order to get through to the main building of Ulduar. Now, for those who haven't been into Ulduar, you've got to understand this. This is the structure, yeah? You got your first element, which is the siege bit of Ulduar, yeah? Which involves you driving through in vehicles, killing everything, and then killing Flame Leviathan. You then get out of the vehicles, and you've got basically a straight run where you see XT002 Deconstructor, and he's guarding the doors to Ulduar. Now, to the left and the right of that, there is a Ignis the Furnace Master and Razor Scale, who are 2 optional boss encounters. They are not required in order to get into the main bit of Ulduar, but you can kill them anyway. Now, Razor Scale is less challenging than Ignis. Ignis is really quite hard. And XT002 is also quite hard, but they've nerfed him quite a bit. Now, the difference that I see between Razor Scale and XT002 is that killing XT is required to get onto the rest of Ulduar, yeah? That's where the big meat of Ulduar is. 10 of the 14 bosses of Ulduar are behind that door, yeah? So that's where the majority of the instance is. Killing Razor Scale is not required to do that. It is basically an optional encounter with no trash ahead of it, and you can just go straight into it after you've killed Flame Leviathan, and indeed, that's what a lot of guilds do. Now, we killed him when he had like a 6-minute enrage time, and now he's something like 10. So, since we managed it, one could assume that's certainly not impossible by any stretch of the imagination. But they did nerf it. Now, they also nerfed XT002 quite a bit. XT002 has been nerfed in a variety of different ways, including... Well, let me think. Yes, his enraged timer got nerfed in the last patch. He also now can't fire gravity bombs and light bombs while doing an ability called Tantrum, which is his big, oh, I kill everybody ability. And he also does less damage now with Gravity Bomb, which was also in the latest patch. So they've nerfed him on 3 separate occasions. They've also nerfed his trash once. Yes, he does have trash. He didn't have trash when they first implemented him, because there was a linking issue where both would pull. And that's a nightmare, don't get me wrong, because 25-man trash for XT is quite challenging. There's only 2 packs of it, but yeah, it'll get in your way. Just like the Ignis trash is pretty challenging as well. I like that. It's good fun. However, and this is the interesting thing. Now, of the 4 initial bosses, only 2 of them have hard modes. Flame Leviathan is one, and we know that Flame Leviathan actually has 4 separate hard modes. 1, 2, 3, and 4 towers up. Yeah? And it gets progressively harder. We actually did it with 2 towers up on 10 man, just because we were mucking about. And it took us a little bit of time to get it down, don't get me wrong. It's not easy. And I was happy to see that. 4 towers is going to be crazy, and I'm really looking forward to doing that one. Razor Scale doesn't have a hard mode. Neither does Ignis, but XT002 does. Now, they buffed XT002's hard mode. Which is interesting, because they nerfed his main mode. Which leads me to a conclusion. Bear in mind, they buffed a few other hard modes as well in the process. My conclusion is this. They're trying to create a very defined gap between hard modes and normal modes, because they want people to go and kill the normal modes if they just want to see the content, and the people who want the hard content get to do the hard modes. Now, this shouldn't really come as a surprise to anybody, because they did claim this was what was going to happen from the start. They put this out there. Right, you guys want hard content? Okay, we'll give you hard modes, but we're not giving you an uber hard instance that only you guys can do, because we were upset that only 3% or so of people actually went into Sunwell and killed the boss. We're upset about that because that's a lot of development time for a very small minority. Now, personally, me being a raider, I have an obvious bias here. I'd usually say, well, there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's not your fault that people didn't see the content. It's the fault of the people playing the game. But of course, there are counter-arguments to that, particularly bearing in mind that, WoW is a very casual game in comparison to most. And by most, I mean MMOs, of course. Very casual friendly. So, you can't really design something that is rock-solid hard, as in, this is harder than, like, any raid content ever. It's like Final Fantasy XI raid content hard. It's like AQ2 raid content hard. It is some of the hardest raid content ever designed in an MMORPG. If you go and do that, then people are going to complain. It's like, well, why aren't you developing content for me? Now, of course, my counter-argument to that has always been, you ain't beaten everything yet, you've still got content. These guys don't. So, keeping them playing is quite important, because, of course, there is a knock-on effect. Because if those guys start quitting, and then the next guys start quitting, you actually degenerate the quality of the player base, and that's bad for everybody. Because you don't want to play with idiots, and you've already got quite enough as it is, without getting rid of all of these good guilds who are there to actually show people how to do it, and hopefully inspire people to play well. So whether or not that's an ideal option, I don't know. The problem that I've got with this is that they're not being consistent. Yeah? The Razor Scale and XT comparison is what I would like to refer to. Razor Scale is an optional boss encounter. Yeah? Thereby, why exactly do we have to nerf it? For what reason? If people can't kill Razor Scale, that's really not a big deal. If they want to see a big chunk of Ulduar, then all they have to do is kill XT. I can understand nerfing XT, because XT's in the way of going into the rest of the instance, yeah? And a lot of the really cool stuff is inside. That's where a lot of the big artwork is. That's where a lot of the cool textures are. Outside's okay, don't get me wrong, but it's basically just towers and bricks. It's not that great, looks-wise. Inside of Ulduar, that's where the really cool stuff happens. You see that thing on the loading screen? Yeah, stuff like that. Shiny things. You've seen all the screenshots. Most of the screenshots, the promo stuff, was inside of Ulduar. That's where all the cool stuff is. It's where all the really neat areas are. So yes, you want your people to see that. But Razor Scale? Why nerf him? Razor Scale was killable. If you can't kill it, then just don't do it. I mean, Ignis is still hard. It's been nerfed slightly, but it's still hard. Ignis is a really tricky encounter. It's funny because it really shouldn't be. If you look at the description of the encounter, it's not that crazy. But we went and did it in 10-man, and it was challenging. It was really challenging. I can't imagine how challenging it's going to be in 25 when we choose to do it. We're ignoring him for the time being because we're going through and dealing with everything past there. You know, we're going for Thorim, Iron Council, Freya, all that good stuff that's behind there. We're going to go give that a shot. We'll come back and do Ignis later. But that's the thing. We can do that. And I have no problems with him being hard, because we're not going to have to wipe on him for a week or so in order to get to the boss after that. We can just ignore him and go on. And that's certainly not non-linear. It's just there's some bosses that are optional. You don't have to do them. So why nerf it? I don't get it. I can't figure it out. I think, to be honest, it's a slightly knee-jerk reaction. And I'm not sure that Blizzard are really on the same page as with each other as regards to how they want to pull this off. Yeah, I seem to be getting the impression that they want to buff the hard modes, make the hard modes hard, make the hard modes challenging for the vast majority of the really good guilds. I mean, the really, really, really good guilds, as in the total Bleeding Edge, have already beaten most of the hard modes. Although they're going to have some issues with Yogg-Saron. You'll hear a little bit about that fight on tomorrow's Pug with Insidia. Trust me, you want to hear that. But they want to make it challenging for the vast majority of the good guilds, because that's what the hard mods are designed for. The good guilds. That's what Soltharian 3 Drakes was made for. The good guilds. Something to do. Wasn't enough, but now we've got all this stuff, and now it is enough. So I don't know. I can't figure out why they would do that. I think it is a little bit of a knee-jerk, and it's unfortunate that they feel like doing that. Now, should we nerf Ulduar? It's tricky, because again, I'm biased, yeah? I am very biased when it comes to this kind of thing, because I am a hardcore raider at heart. I've done all the hard content, yeah? The only thing that I missed out on, which I'm still kicking myself to this very day, was Sunwell. I quit WoW. I quit WoW like 9 months before Wrath came out, as I just wasn't having any fun in it anymore. I was having issues with guilds and all that kind of thing. I never really got to do Sunwell pre-nerf, and I was looking forward to doing that. But, you know, stuff happens. You move on, you live with it. I would like to see a lot of people do Ulduar and at least get... They don't have to beat it, but they've got to get at least far enough into it to experience what raiding is like. But when it comes to me, I'm like, well, it should be hard, and we should be white, because this is what it was like in old school. I remember when we killed XT002 last week for the first time. That was actually a genuine celebration. I haven't heard that in a long time. Long time. Hard encounter. Great. Awesome. Hard encounter. Finally. Brilliant. There's some more coming up. But I suppose with these hard modes, there really isn't that much of an excuse to make the encounters uber hard from the outset. Because one, you then have to step it up, which is going to be pretty tricky to begin with. Without, of course, making a block encounter that no one can deal with. And you want people to see the content. So I suppose in that respect, hard mode is a reasonable compromise. I had my doubts, don't get me wrong. But having done a couple of the hard modes, particularly now having done... We attempted the 10-man hard mode of XT002, and that was hard. We're looking forward to hopefully killing it next week on hard mode. That'll be great fun. We also did a hard mode with Flame Leviathan. And that was good as well. That actually added a lot of different elements to the fight. It wasn't just a gimmick. It made the fight a lot more fun. So, okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for the time being. Although I would guard specifically against... this is a warning to any Blizzard staff that are listening. I really would be a little bit cautious with how much you cave into people, because some of this stuff can be seen as caving. People did complain about Razor Scales in Rage Timer. They did complain about XT-Zip in Rage Timer. Yes, they are strict, don't get me wrong, but you've got to distinguish between BS mechanics like throwing bombs during Tantrum. Yeah, that's a BS mechanic. Yeah, don't like that. That's just a gimmick. That's a horrible, horrible gimmick. As opposed to nerfing the Enrage Timer, which is not a gimmick, because the Enrage Timer was fair. It was a good, solid Enrage Timer. There was nothing wrong with it. You didn't need to particularly balance your group. You had to have a kind of normal spread of people, and you had to have people doing efficient DPS. What's wrong with that? And not get any of the little scrap bots there. That's the way you're supposed to do the fight. allowing people to make so many mistakes and slack is not a good thing, because they're just going to get punished later on. And it can have a knock-on effect. It can be a slippery slope. If you nerf the early stuff, and people run into stuff that's then harder later on, they're going to whine for more nerfs, and it's going to keep happening. So do be careful. Distinguish between optional bosses and not-so-optional bosses. Distinguish between BS mechanics and just plain difficulty and challenge. It's important that that happens. You listen to Blue Please here on WoW Radio about the Total Biscuit. I'll be right back after this break. We're talking about VOA. Enjoy.